Hello everybody, we are on the road again today in Munich in Germany at the DLD conference, an event I always come to. It's in January of 2025, celebrating its 20th year anniversary, and we're talking to some of the leading speakers at the event about the last 20 years. And I was thrilled to find that my old friend Ece Temelkuran, a very distinguished Turkish writer, poet, polemicist, novelist, troublemaker, exile, is speaking here, and she's been on the show before and she'll be on the show again. Ece, happy 2025.
Is it? It's lovely being with you again, Andrew. Although I have a rejection about the word exile, I find it morally and politically wrong, but that's a long story.
Well, what's a better word than exile?
Well, life is a long journey, and this is part of it. So, yeah, exile gives too much credit to the Western world, I think.
Well, maybe I won't call you a journeyman, because I'd probably get into trouble for that. I'll call you a journey woman. So, Ece, what were you doing in January 2005? You've had a rich 20 years, and I don't mean that in an economic sense. Can you remember January 2025?
January 2005, I remember very vividly. It was right after 2002, which was the year that Erdogan came to power, and I was just starting to write how horrible it will get, and the intellectual climate in Turkey was not very convenient for such statements, because it was very fashionable to say that to support such such a party is to support democracy. We're going to get rid of army strong hand. There'll be real democracy in Turkey for real people of Turkey, and so on and so forth. So it was the time, I think, my first impressions of the new type of fascism that were shaping. So yeah, those years were very helpful when writing How to Lose a Country, 7 Steps from Democracy to Fascism, years and years later. 2005 also reminds me good things, because it was then internet was more decentralized, and it was more political, and it was more used to organize political protests and so on. So yeah, it was a very high time for being hopeful for the future, while some insidious things were appearing.
It's always easy in retrospect to determine the future, but did you have a sense in January of 2005 that you were, I've already made the mistake of calling you a journeyman, a journeywoman, a canary-s in the coal mine, in the sense that you began to understand that the future was authoritarian rather than democratic?
Well, at the time I didn't use the word authoritarian, or I didn't even think of the word fascism, to be honest. But there was this sense of the ground is being pulled from underneath you. You know, something is changing, and something massive is changing. The paradigm of politics is changing. This is what I felt. I couldn't really put my finger on it. I couldn't really conceptualize it then. It took years for me to conceptualize it. So yeah, the sense was actually, my sense, in the general sense, in Turkey and beyond, was that something good come. You know, it wasn't very pessimistic, or it wasn't very dark, our vision of the future, I think, then.
You're schooled in historical theories of one kind or another. Are we living in a grandly transitional period, these 20 years? Is this the period, and this is the language that they use at events like DLD, is this the moment, the foggy period in a Gramscian sense between the industrial and the digital age, or is that just garbled nonsense?
Well, the diagnosis is right. We are going something as profound as industrial revolution, that's for sure. But then, I'm not using those fancy terms. If you ask me, neoliberalism, the unleashed form of neoliberalism, is swallowing up democracy, and also the basic human morals. So we are going through some sort of, yes, a moment, but it is not like as bright as it seems in these conferences. It doesn't really seem very, very light, like beautiful to me.
But in the period between 2005 and 25, Ece, have we seen the last gasps of neoliberalism? A lot of historians believe we're living in a post-neoliberal age with leaders like Trump now who've rejected most of the principles of globalized neoliberalism, or is that an illusion?
I think it's an illusion. I mean, like, yeah, there's an intellectual industry that has to come up with new terms as if something new is happening. Nothing is new. I mean, like, we know how fascism comes to power. We know how fascism operates. It operates thanks to the crisis of economy, and when the powerful and the financially powerful especially need the support of the state power. This is what's happening. It happened in almost the same way in 1930s, and now it's happening in a grander scale. So there's nothing shocking. For instance, lately, just a few days before this, there's this Greenland discussion. Trump just came up and said that they're going to buy Greenland. I thought, why is it so surprising? Of course there'll be failed states in the future, and they will be bought by companies. And it's not Trump that started it. It just, it was there already. There's an island in Britain that is owned by Barclays, for instance. So there will be neoliberal free spaces, so-called, without the authority, without the regulations of the state. They are getting rid of the last regulations of capitalism. And this is how it looks like. Yeah, it looks as outrageous as Trump or Elon Musk in that sense.
Ece, a lot of people talk about the Arab Spring in an abstract sense. It was often believed by social media to represent the beginning of a new age of democracy and all the rest of it. Clearly that was a failure. But you don't talk just about the Arab Spring in an abstract sense. You lived through it. And in fact, some of your descriptions, both in terms of our conversations and your writing, are very memorable. Was your involvement in the Occupy movement in Istanbul, in Cairo and elsewhere, is that the most memorable series of moments over the last 20 years for you personally?
Did it fail, really? I think these social movements, political movements, social movements, they're like jasmine. Some very old woman in Tunis told me how they grow jasmine. They take the root and they, place the root from underneath the soil, and they stick it out from somewhere else. So every 10 years something is happening. Seattle was there 1990s, and then World Social Forum happened in 2003 or 2001, and then 3. I was there as well, Porto Alegre. And then 10 years later, Gezi uprising, Tahrir happened, and Arab Spring. And I was wondering the other day, those were the hard times, 1980s, but some people worked for 10 years to create a social movement. And then 10 years later, the seed flourished from somewhere else, blossomed from somewhere else. So are we today in this dark times working for the next decade? That's my question, and I think we should be asking this question. But then, yes, personally, it was the best of the times and worst of times. My personal life has changed a lot since Gezi uprising, to be honest. That's why you call me an exile now. But then, I think those moments rather, set a standard, quite a high standard, to be honest, what could be done, when we come together, what we can do. To be completely honest, the last biggest carnival of humanity was 2003. No to War coalition and the worldwide marches. I think that was the time when we started losing our faith in politics, in democracy, in ourselves as humans, because the entire world was on streets, and next day they did what they wanted to do. They bombed Baghdad. So that's when we started losing our sense of agency, our faith in politics, our faith in our political agency. Gezi, Tahrir, Arab Spring was the big moment of getting back that agency. I think we need a moment like that soon, very, very soon.
You use the A word, Ece, agency. What do you mean by that?
Okay, here's my thinking. Neoliberalism, with its an unshakable creed in profit, swallowed up democracy, and it turned democracy into theatrics of itself, because it removed social justice from democracy. And social justice, equality, was the biggest promise of democracy. Once that promise wasn't there, thanks to the economic reality, people started thinking that, why are we doing this? Why are we going to the ballot boxes? We cannot change anything. Like, we cannot change the reality, our economic precarity. So why are we doing this at all? So faith in democracy was lost. And this also means that, going back to 2003, what we say do not matter. We do not count as citizens. And just let's remember how all the far-right movements or leaders come to power. They are promising that agency back. They are claiming that agency, and they are creating this idea of, there are people there, powerful people, stealing your agency from you. I'm going to give you the agency. We are the people. We are the real people. So it is only understandable that people fall for people like leaders like Trump or several others. Agency is believing in yourself and believing in what you say and trusting that what you say will be accounted for, will matter. So this is why I think politics of emotions is very important at this point, because all emotions that makes us less human, like fear, like hostility, like hatred, and so on and so forth, they have been mobilized and organized by far right today. And we have to, I think about progressive politics of emotions to really counter the current. Otherwise, a few fixes here and there in the administration, in democratic process, or in democratic mechanism will not do it. Will not cut it.
Actually, listening to you, there's an irony in a sense. On the one hand, your critique of the last 20 years is one where the people have lost their agency and the international markets, neoliberalism, authoritarians have replaced that. On the other hand, the last 20 years is a manifestation of your own agency. You're an uncompromising woman, writer, thinker, polemicist. Some people might be watching and saying, well, everyone can be like Ece. Everyone can say no if they choose to. Where did you learn to say no? You've talked to me before about your grandmother.
Well, I mean, like, it looks better than outside, I think. Who I am, like what I am doing and where I am and so on. It's quite an uncomfortable place. I think most of all, one has to know that there is some sort of loneliness, and it's not nice to be subjected to alienated looks when you talk about like capitalism. What are you talking about? Anyway, I think we all live lives that we can afford. I'm paying a price that I can pay. I couldn't have paid the price of saying yes. So I'm doing this. I'm saying no, and I'm suffering the consequences. I'm becoming homeless constantly. But then the sense, this is a very hard question. It's about who I am and what I do, but also I think I belong to this long line of people who think that dignity, if you lose your dignity, there's nothing after that. So I'm not alone in that tradition, and I know there are so many people doing much more important work than I do, and we are all paying the price. The only thing that you get in return is good friendships, and I really believe that this is important, because I think friendship will be the relation that we will have to think about when everything else collapses around us. And there will come a time that we will have to survive on several levels. We are going to be survivors. And then we will understand that it's only friendships, real friendships, that keep us on this earth, like standing straight and so on.
You talk about friendship. Is that, in a sense, a retreat from politics? You are an incredibly political writer. Your life has been political.
Yeah.
But is friendship a retreat from the public space, a retreat from the battles that you've fought?
Okay, friendship, I see it as a political concept. I wrote about it, I wrote a chapter about it in Together. But then, speaking of retreat, okay, this is personal and probably oversharing, but I'm telling you anyway. I left the country in 2016, and overnight I decided to write in English. Before that,
you left Turkey in 2016.
Yeah.
And you were sorry to interrupt. You were a prominent columnist and writer in Turkey.
I was somebody, and then overnight I was nobody in another language, in another country, on my own, and so on. After I began writing in English, I became a writer, so to speak. And the reason I started writing English was to write How to Lose a Country. I felt like, okay, I have to tell people that it's coming towards them what had happened in Turkey. And since then, I'm talking about politics constantly, and people, like, the world is catching up finally. They're using the word fascism. It's no longer this strange thing. Everybody knows that it's fascism coming towards us. But now I'm thinking, I remember that I'm a gypsy at heart in any way. I'm coming from literature. I'm writing poetry. I'm writing novels and so on. Yes, I can do politics. I can talk about politics. I can write politics. And I think I'm not that bad at it. But I think I want to go back to literature. Personal reasons, but also I miss beauty. I miss beauty, and political beauty is something that I am thinking about as well. But then I missed pure beauty, and I think one has to retreat to beauty now and then when one is exhausted.
When it comes to friendship, of course, there are physical friendships, but also metaphorical ones, being inspired by one person or other. You're living in Berlin now. Do you have historical role models? Rosa Luxemburg, for some reason or other, comes to mind a little bit with you.
Well, I'm dressed up and everything. How can you say Rosa Luxemburg?
Didn't she dress up?
Well, actually, she was dressing up very well. And of course, she's one of the role models for several reasons.
And she was very political, but also had very strong feelings about the role of friendship.
Yes, exactly. And there are several other thinkers who think that friendship is very important. Like in that sense, I am connected to that tradition of thinkers who thought about friendship, like from Spinoza to Simone Weil and so on. But my role model, I think, more than anyone else, unfortunately, he's a man, Walter Benjamin, I think. And living in Berlin has become quite strange lately. AfD, during their election campaign, they sent these fake deportation tickets to people. I'm like, it's a madness. But then now, for the first time in Europe, I feel unsafe because I can get these fake deportation tickets. I can get even the real ones if things go on like this. And now, I'm living somewhere in Charlottenburg, very close to Kudam, and there is a Platz called Walter Benjamin Platz, and I'm having my coffee every day there. The other day I was thinking, now it's not like a, fantasy. I'm actually sharing somehow the reality of these people, Walter Benjamin, Hannah Arendt, and several others. I know what it felt like. So yeah. Living in Berlin is now living in a documentary. It's weird. It's very strange, a little bit terrifying. I lost a home already once, and it's not easy to start everything from scratch when you're 44. I was 44. And to be honest, I don't want to do it again. So fascism is a matter of losing your home to me, and I think it should be for everybody. They should think about how homeless they will be once these guys gain more power. I'm not only talking about Germany, I'm talking about all for the entire world.
You've used the F word again, fascism, several times. And you brought up Benjamin, of course, who committed suicide fleeing from the Nazis on the French-Spanish border. Is this period then, Ece, for you, simply a return to the late 30s and early 40s?
You know what? I find it a little bit intellectually lazy to draw similarities and constantly talk about that age and so on. But
if you use a word like fascism, you're inviting that.
I am not, afraid of inviting it. Actually, that's why I'm doing this, to alarm people. But then I find it a little bit intellectually lazy to try to find the similarities to prove that this is fascism. That is the thing I don't want to do, because then people are looking for this military boots, uniforms, funny mustaches, and so on. You don't have to do that. Now it's a different, artistic direction of fascism has developed a lot. Now they come as a circus, they come as entertainment, in the form of entertainment. I'm using the word, the first time I used the word in 2016 and then 2019 when the book came out and so on, people were like, no, this is not fascism. That's not, especially Germans. In Germany, there's this jealousy about fascism, like it's our brand. Okay, we can talk about it, you can. But now everybody uses the word. It became absolutely popular, especially in the United States, by the way. I'm quite surprised. I'm trying to alarm people to this by using the word. And of course there's the ideological background of it, like why I call it fascism, but mostly I do it because I want people to understand how serious this is.
Yeah, and to be vulgar again, returning to Benjamin and comparisons with the past, of course his suicide was particularly sad because it reflected an absence of agency. It was a hopelessness. What does this 20 years tell us about how to fight back? You wrote this wonderful book, How to Lose a Country, which isn't entirely bleak, which is about also how not to lose a country. What have you learned over the last 20 years about fighting back against the bad guys?
By the way, Suicide Note of Stefan Zweig tells more to us in terms of what to do or what's happening to us. In his suicide letter when he was in Brazil, he said, I don't know this world anymore. I don't belong to this world anymore, and I don't want to know this world anymore. I think many of us, especially after Trump's victory in the United States, many people started to feel that way. Like, this is too cruel, this is too insane, this is too outrageous. I don't want to even understand this, and so on. And that is the homelessness I talk about, I'm thinking about lately. Like, we are feeling homeless in this new world that they are preparing for us. What did I learn? That's why I keep talking about friendship, because at the end of the day, it's your friends. Not only like your intimate relations, but those people who you consider friends, that you are in solidarity with, that keeps your sanity and keeps you as a human being. This is what I learned. This is the most important lesson. The second thing is, it's a bloody long game. So, especially in Europe and in the United States, I see people going nuts, like, we have to stop this now, we have to do this now, we have to say this, there's this anxiety. Call it friends, because it's going to be a long game. It's not about Trump, it's not about Elon Musk, it's a bigger thing that we have to rethink how we live, how we exist in this world, because it's about human morals and remembering human morals, the basic moral values of humanity. Because the system that we are living in destroyed those, basic moral values, and we need a reform, and we really need to think out of the box.
But thinking out of the box is what everybody claims to do at an event
I know. It's like a very popular.
DLD, they all claim to be reinventing the future, and particularly in technological terms. What about the role of technology, Ece, over the last 20 years? Many people saw social media, Web 2.0, as the opportunity for democracy. Then, of course, we had the collapse of the Arab Spring. How do you interpret the rise of Silicon Valley, of social media, and now of AI in terms of the history of the last 20 years?
I was in a panel a minute ago, and I asked, AI, lovely, let's talk about this. But then, somebody has to ask the question, people have to ask the question, which I did in the panel, who owns the means of production? This AI creates this illusion that, it's not owned by anybody. Nobody's controlling. No, there's always someone who's making the decisions at the end of the day. And Silicon Valley and so on, at the end of the day, they're all working in the system where there is no meaning besides profit. And when you live in that system, of course, you create more and more of that system. You recreate, you multiply that system. This is what's happening. So social media has been, the topic, big thanks to Elon Musk. It always belonged to a man or women or whatever. It was always a private enterprise. But then it felt more like a agora, like a collective space that we are exchanging views and so on. Now it is made very clear to us that it is owned by this man, and this guy makes the decisions. So it's good that it's crystallized now. No, there's no illusions and so on. My question is, why didn't it occur to us, to all of us all together, right the minute he bought Twitter, to organize against him? Why is ownership is more powerful than being part of that platform? So that myth should be questioned. Ownership, that myth. When I say out of the box, I really mean out of the box. I'm talking about let's talk about capitalism more than anything else, because all the other things, even Trump, even AI and so on and so forth, they're all the symptoms, all the consequences of what's wrong with the system. So when I say out of the box, I mean really out of the box.
Do you have any hope in social media? You were an early star on Twitter. I can't remember where you are now on it, but I remember you had over 1 million followers. You were one of the most popular Turkish writers and thinkers on Twitter before it became X. How have you changed your social media presence or lack of presence over the last 5 years?
I am restarting everything in Blue Sky, and it feels like, Andrew, starting from scratch in Zagreb. I feel like a digital refugee. I think we're all digital.
I visited you in Zagreb. We had a very nice lunch. Do you remember?
Exactly. Now I am a refugee in Blue Sky, and I'm still on X, 2,600,000 followers. I don't know what that means, to be honest.
Any
I'm
friends
very honest
did you
in
have?
saying this. Because it doesn't mean influence. It doesn't mean impact. Not necessarily. Everybody is so keen to mix the quality and quantity and so on. Anyway, so I'm a bit reluctant now, because it felt like we were playing all together and changing the world. There was a chance of changing everything, and then that chance was stolen from us. So yeah, I'm a bit heartbroken, I think, like many people are.
Did you make many friends on social media?
Yes, I did. Lovely friends and colleagues, and I met wonderful people, and I still do, by the way.
Ece, there was a piece in The Guardian today, and there have been lots of pieces like this, about how a young woman made a friend of an AI and even had sex with it and replaced the AI, replaced her husband with the AI. Given your focus on friendship and your interest in friendship, your passion for friendship in both a political and non-political way, can we be friends with machines?
Are those machines though? Because they're replicating humans and they're driving their, vocabulary from human experience. So are they really machines? But then they're not real people, as we call it. You know what? Whatever works. There was this film, Her. Brilliant movie. And helplessness and loneliness helplessness in solitary lives. Yeah, I think it's okay. It's okay to do that. On a more philosophical level, how many humans are real anyway? There's this, myth of, individuality. Everybody's so special and so on. Nobody's special anymore. Not really. It's so rare that you run into a person really special. So yeah. So how many humans are humans? That might be a good question, I think.
Is there anything to celebrate over the last 20 years? You mentioned Her. There have been a lot of good books, movies, art made. What particular should we be celebrating?
Celebrating? You know what really strikes me as surprising, wow, amazing, is that all this massive propaganda machine, all this power, all this money, all this political might, and still they couldn't shape the world as they wanted. I'm not talking about fascist leaders only here. I'm talking about the entire system. There's part of us still thinks this is not right. Okay, I don't want to be part of this, and so on. This is something to celebrate, I think. The moral takeover did not happen yet. And this is very important, I think.
What do you make of Elon Musk? Just thinking out loud here. The left always used to fantasize in an abstract way about a guy like Musk, the wealthiest man in the world, who was sticking his nose into everything. He was a racist, a troublemaker, a narcissist. And then suddenly a real person like Musk comes along. What do you make of this guy? Especially since he ruined your home on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. I'm not angry with Erdogan. Therefore, I'm not angry with Elon Musk. These are the two guys that, took my home from me. But then, sponsoring cynicism. How on earth you feel that you are entitled to sponsor cynicism, political cynicism, philosophical cynicism, on every level? How must you feel? What kind of a sense of self do you have to have that, not arrogance, but that grandiosity to sponsor cynicism? Because if you're not a completely stupid person, you know that you are doing what you do today will impact generations. So, yeah, I have the same sense of puzzled sense. Those people who kill a lion or whatever, who go on hunting. How dare you? You think that you are more important than this creature, which is so beautiful. So, I have the same sense, they're hunting down our faith in humanity. And how can you do that? It's so wrong. You shouldn't do that. I think they should have more friends. I think they don't have friends.
Yeah, there's a loneliness certainly about
I don't want to psychologize these people's, actions, because it's ideological rather than psychology, and it's a very big thing, in Western world, to think about the dictator. Why, what kind of trauma must have been, whatever. We shouldn't psychologize because it's political, it's ideological, and so on. But still, something in me thinks, God, if he had a friend, good friend, saying dude, what are you doing?
Is there a problem over the last 20 years, Ece, with boys? Lots of books written about this. Richard Reeves been on the show several times. He even started an institute now. He's the author of Boys and Men. Have men gone off the rails? Boys gone off the rails? Certainly there is a gendered element to this. Erdogan, Musk, Thiel, they all seem to be men.
Well, to be honest, I mean, like one of the definitions that I put into fascism, I think fascism at its very heart is the fear of female. Not women, but female. Female, that is, female is a concept in my head which explains all the fluidity and like uncontrollable, colorful, and so on. Fear of that kind of female is big part of fascism today. So yeah, and it's only normal. I mean, like you cannot imagine to get back power, which belong to like. You cannot imagine to have a claim for power, which belonged to men for I don't know how many thousand years, and not expect something like really big, massive, big backlash. So this is a backlash, of course. I mean, like that backlash is organized by fascism, and I feel it. You see, I mean, like if I was a man, I would be absolutely terrified, because who are you then? If you're not that man anymore, if you're not allowed to be the man, who are you then? This is the first time in thousands of years that women have so much economic power, political experience, economic power, and this is the first time perhaps in history that women are not afraid of being not loved. So this is terrifying for men. I understand them. I'm not being sarcastic or anything. I really do understand them. It is fearful because women can do everything on their own now. So what's the purpose of men? So this is a crisis. There is a crisis of malehood. You know, when we're talking about fascism and all this political phenomena, at the heart of it, of course, there is that too. You know, crisis of malehood.
You give me a perfect title for this piece. What's the point of men? Is there one? Are we finished?
Yeah.
I speak as a man, of course.
No, I mean, like,
should we give up, without wishing to be too vulgar, Ece, should we give up our penises?
No. Oh, God, no. The thing is, I think women do not really know what they want men to be either. Nobody knows. This is a very weird environment. Right now, this is the first time in history that people can change their gender. So, problematic in terms of like, this opens new opportunities, also brings new problems. So I don't know. But then, listening to women should be less troublesome for men. I think, yeah. I'm thinking of Zorba for some reason. I don't know why. Nikos Kazantzakis.
Zorba the Greek?
Yeah, Zorba the Greek.
Anthony Quinn, the movie?
Yeah. Maybe some kind of that man, like, who is not afraid of being inspired by women, but also having a humorous perception of manhood. Yeah.
Not taking oneself too seriously requires a degree of confidence. To be
maturity,
a
I would say, not confidence, maturity. Nobody should take, yeah, exactly. This is very important, taking yourself too seriously. My God, how boring it is to listen to these people. Yeah.
So we are at, for better or worse, Ece, January 2025. Where can we get to? Where is the promise, the hope? DLD is full of hope. I know and you and I share this, a degree of skepticism about this kind of aggressive optimism, but can we be optimistic in 2025? Where's all the potential?
Well, first of all, I don't believe in hope, the word hope, and I, made an argument about it. I believe in faith, and I think we should replace this, hope with faith. Faith in terms of not religious faith, like a faith in human beings, a faith in politics, and so on. Because hope is a lazy word. I think it's too invigorating, like superficial invigoration there.
So what's the difference between hope and faith?
You cannot compare them, but I say that hope is too fragile for these times, and it's pacifying somehow, and it kind of gives up the political agency And we have to remember the past. There were times when there was no hope, and people acted out of their faith in humankind against dictators, against fascism, and so on and so forth. So that's why, there's a chapter in it in Together. So I'm not going deep into that. But then I also do not like this optimist and pessimist thing. But then I think we have to take ourselves less seriously and sit down for genuine conversations and not be, let go of the fears that were put there during the Cold War, which means, we shouldn't be afraid of talking about the democratic socialist ideas and so on and so forth. And so the world needs us badly. And we shouldn't be afraid of ideas. I think we're still so afraid of ideas. Many people are so afraid of ideas. Even when fascism knocks the door, they're still more afraid of socialists. That is why I am not optimist, if you're going to use that word. So yeah.
But would you like to see, and you introduced this word socialism, would you like to see in the next 20 years a return, maybe that's the wrong word, a re-embrace of the ideal of socialism?
You know what? Even, a new Green New Deal would be enough. We don't have to call it socialism. What we have to think, we have to, assess the reality. There is immense social injustice, inequality, and we have to do something about it. Not because fascism is at our door because of this, but also it is against human dignity to live like this. So yeah, you don't have to call it socialism. Call it whatever you like. But then, yes, we have to address the situation. We are getting so away from a dignified life as humans. Many of us are, at least.
Let's end on a personal note, Ece. I called you an exile before, and you corrected me, but you're on a journey. Over the next 20 years, would you like to find a home?
Oh yeah, definitely. You know what? I'm thinking about an institute called Home. Maybe I shouldn't say this to you now, but I will. Because I need an intellectual home. I need a physical home as well. And I think it will be built of people rather than concrete. I'm thinking about it. But yeah, part of me is 15 minutes away from going to Greece, being very close to Mediterranean and writing novels. Or maybe I'm exhausted, I don't know.
But would that be home, a return to Greece?
It's funny, because Greece, and I go to Mytilene every year with my family, meet there since 2016, every summer. And Mytilene is the closest place to our summer home, actually. We can see our summer home from Mytilene, although I cannot go there.
And this is a Turkish island? Or
Greek
the
island.
mainland?
So actually, as you get closer to Turkey, you're feeling more distant. You feel that you cannot go there, so it becomes unreachable, so to speak. Yeah. I don't miss Turkey anymore, to be completely honest. I miss friends. But yeah, I miss the sense of home.
The more I talk to you, the more nothing seems new, particularly in an Eastern Mediterranean sense. There's a Homeric quality to all this, isn't there? The idea of exile.
More and more, I think of Camus' words, Albert Camus' words. All literature is exile literature. So the other day I was thinking, actually, all those people I read, not only political work, but also literature and so on, most of them were exiles. So maybe I brought this upon myself. Who knows? Yeah.
So in a sense then, finally, Ece, if you discovered a home, it might be a bad thing for your literary skills.
No, definitely not. I can cry over this. Home is where you rest and where you feel you're held. So I miss that feeling that I'm held.
Ece Temelkuran, it's always an honor and a lot of fun to talk to you. Happy New Year. Healthy,
Happy New Year.
Safe New Year for 2025, and we will talk again in the not too distant future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew.